Since independence, Kenya has had 3 constitutions.
Lowered for the last time, and Kenya ceased to be a colony.
Immediately after the attainment of self-rule, the country has been characterized by continued efforts to structure and restructure the political and governance systems. Push for a different model was driven by the need to address issues such as ethnicity, lack of sound structures, and weak institutions. These issues were considered a serious threat to the country's long-term well-being. The first constitution adopted at independence was drafted in London. An election was later conducted, and the Kenya African National Union KANU won. A year later, the KANU administration would amend the constitution, establishing a presidential system. This later generated concerns amid claims that the then constitution had turned the KANU-led government into an autocratic regime. The struggle for democracy became even more persistent, and in the early 1990s, there was a consensus that the country needed a new set of rules. Amid both internal and external pressure, President Daniel Arap Moi bowed and allowed multi-party elections in 1992.
I am glad to inform Kenyans that I have today assented to the bills as a sign of my commitment to political reforms.
Yet, even after this historic proclamation, there remained concerns that the amendments made on the constitution then only served to strengthen the executive arm of government.
The way we went about writing our constitution, one, I must say that it took blood, sweat, tears, and lives. Sorry. Lives of many people, Kenyans, to get a new constitution. It was not a walk in the park. It was a fight. It was a fight by the people, for the people, to have a new constitution that would give a framework on how we are going to move on as a country.
Efforts to reform the constitution were relaunched in the year 2000 with the creation of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission. After broad public consultations, the commission produced a draft famously dubbed the Bomas Draft, named after the cultural center located in Nairobi where its drafting took place.
To welcome you all to the formal inauguration of the National Constitutional Conference here at the Bomas of Kenya.
We are called upon to write a new, proper constitution of the Republic of Kenya. So let us not quarrel over small matters.
But sections of government were unhappy with the Bomas draft and successfully pushed for yet another draft constitution, the Wako draft, named after the then Attorney General Amos Wako.
The NARC people who won Kibaki and Wamalwa, and Ngilu and Raila, they formed this coalition and they won. But they won on the basis of some understanding of who will get what, okay, in terms of power.
Yeah.
It has very little to do with the country. It's the who gets what. As soon as they were declared the winners and they were sworn in, now the winners started fighting. The people in NAC started fighting. And that was the background to now the prolonged Bomas circus.
The draft received parliamentary approval and was presented to Kenyans in a referendum held in 2005. The document was however rejected by Kenyans after successful campaigns by an alliance between opposition party KANU and disgruntled members of government led by Raila Odinga. This marked the birth of the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM. The party went on to challenge Kibaki in the 2007 elections, whose aftermath led to chaos that left a number of Kenyans dead and thousands others displaced. A peace deal brokered by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan led to the formation of a grand coalition government. As part of the power-sharing deal, the Kibaki and Raila Odinga coalition was expected to deliver a new constitution before another election could be held. A committee of experts led by renowned lawyer Nzamba Kitonga was established to lead the drafting of Kenya's new constitution. The committee sought the views of citizens, professional organizations, religious groups, special interest groups, civil society, academicians, amongst others, and factored them into the draft constitution that was then subjected to a referendum.
Honored to report that we completed this task. Significantly, Kenyans are still almost equally divided on the system of government which they desire. While they remain unanimous that the powers of their chief executive must be curtailed and be subject to checks and balances, they continue to root for either a pure parliamentary system of government or a pure presidential system of government or a hybrid system of government.
On the 4th of August 2010, Kenyans resoundingly voted to adopt a new constitution. At a promulgation ceremony at Uhuru Park 3 weeks later, President Mwai Kibaki signed the new constitution into law, signaling a fresh start. Kenyans were ecstatic. The new constitution had reduced executive power, devolved authority, and guaranteed rights to minority and marginalized groups.
The people of Kenya have yearned for a new constitution which, one, guarantees peace, national unity, and integrity of the Republic of Kenya in order to safeguard the well-being of the people of Kenya.
This constitution is very good and is very progressive, is very transformative. It is very, very responsive to the needs of the people of this country. To a large extent, and in my own estimation, to almost over 75–80%, this is a very good constitution. This constitution, first and foremost, is legitimate, is owned by the people of Kenya. So the sovereign power vests in the people of Kenya. To the extent that Kenyans participated in the writing of this constitution is wonderful, is fantastic, is good.
Let me tell you that this constitution is the best constitution in the world. And if it were to be fully implemented, this world would change itself and be among the fast developing countries joining the club of developing countries. Look at the separation of powers between the three arms of government. Yeah? For the first time since independence, we have had a semblance of independence of the arms of government. We have seen a very robust and bold judiciary that has come out and said it as it is.
But despite the promising aspects of the new constitution, serious concerns have been raised with regard to its implementation.
It is one thing to have a document called the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. But it's another issue to implement this document. Implementation. Now, the other day our Chief Justice rightly said that a constitution, if not implemented, or if it has provision that people are not going to respect or whatever, is a hollow document. It's hollow.
Political class has done this country disservice because the intention of the 2010 constitution was to render office holders irrelevant and make the structures and institutions work. But by and large, institutions have been suffocated, yeah, and have taken a personality kind of phenomena, and rather than the institution working, institutions are now known by the holders of those offices. If you talk about was never the intention of the 2010 Constitution, because the Constitution was meant to disabuse institutions of the faces that operate within them.
These very issues have led to calls for amendments of the 2010 Constitution through the now popular Building Bridges initiative, born following a truce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his political rival camp partner Raila Odinga of ODM.
I don't want to call it a lie, but there was this impression that once we have a new constitution, then it's going to be a panacea. You know, it's going to be the alpha and omega, and it is going to be a solution to all our problems, which of course is true to an extent and is also not true to an extent. Now, to the extent that we were able to manage to rewrite our constitution, remember when this movement started, it was not about writing a new constitution. It was about constitutional change.
One very clear thing is that our behavioral culture is extremely key in determining where Kenya goes. Unless we have fidelity to the Constitution, unless we have allegiance to the Constitution and the nation, we will get nowhere.
The country's key political figures have since stressed the need to re-examine Kenya's style of politics for the country to make giant strides towards economic development. The head of state says this can only be done through a re-engineering of the country's constitution.
But the crafters of this social contract also told us and reminded us that a constitution was a work in progress. And as such, we were made to adopt it with a promise that in the future we will make it better. 10 years later, the moment to improve on it, I believe, is now.
While noting that a lot has been achieved since independence, the president says a moment has come to bring an end to the senseless cycles of violence experienced in every election.
People should constantly reevaluate and debate the document. That does not mean that they should change every time they debate. But it's good to talk about it. The shortcomings, and there are many shortcomings. The positives. And if there are some rough edges, zipigwe msasa.
Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
Kenya inchi yangu, Kenya